Right, filmmakers have raised grievances because the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has withheld between 600 million and 1 billion rand owed to companies that qualify for the South African Film and Television Production Incentive. The incentive provides rebates of up to 40% of costs to production companies that meet certain requirements. Trade and Industry Minister Parks Dao told Parliament the issue is being addressed and said the department is in the process of handling a backlog of applications for production rebates and rebuilding capacity to vet them. He said the incentive scheme underperformed during the COVID-19 pandemic and the budget was taken away and reallocated to other programs. I'm now joined by Nobuntu Hlazo-Webster, the member of Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition. A very good morning to you and thank you so much for your time, Ms. Hlazo-Webster, for joining us. So the industry is reportedly on the verge of collapse due to the withholding of these funds. Maybe talk to us with regards to what led to the current situation of that 1 billion rand that is now due to qualifying companies.
So good morning, Katlego, and good morning to all the viewers. As you've rightfully outlined, the funds from the incentive scheme during COVID were actually redirected. We'll know that this industry is one of the industries that was affected by the COVID pandemic and the lockdown and was for a period not able to produce, not able to actually have activities that are related to the sector. And so the incentive scheme was at that time redirected. What has then happened is that there has been a backlog, if I'm to put it just in simple terms, with some of the applicants that had been approved and have had to wait a long period to actually have those funds dispersed. So year on year, the fund has continued to approve applications, but is back paying, so to speak, some of the projects that had been approved in previous years. And so you sit now with a committee within the film unit that has not sat in a long time to actually then assess new applications, but you're also sitting with film companies, with filmmakers that had been approved and have not had the funds dispersed. And so you understand how that affects an industry. You have projects that have been delayed, you have projects that have taken place and that owe people within the ecosystem. They'll owe performers, they'll owe other companies within the ecosystem. And you'll have projects that had been scheduled to start that haven't started. And then it means you have hundreds of thousands of people that should have been working that are actually ultimately not then working on those projects. So that is the situation as it stands at the moment.
And a very dire situation there. I mean, if you speak on this backlog, the direct impact is on the jobs. And this is an industry that really has people that are coming in from either a high end in terms of skill or a very low end. So this is quite a vast array of jobs that are being lost or just held within this backlog.
Absolutely, it's a vast array of jobs. And I mean, part of the sitting on Tuesday, part of particularly what we were as members of parliament, part of what I was bringing to the fore, as someone who understands the industry well, is the fact that this is an industry that goes beyond the arts. If you look at the value chain of the film industry, you're looking at a value chain where you do have production companies and producers, absolutely, but you've got all sorts of technical skills that sit within production companies and that sit within a production. You've got logistics that sits in the ecosystem. You have post-production, you have construction, you have catering, you have tourism. And so it affects a wide spectrum of even sub-industries, not only people who are employed directly in film, but other industries as well. And it is one of those industries that actually is a huge multiplier when it comes to rands invested and then the output of jobs that are created. So if we talk about a country like South Africa that is wanting to reindustrialize, that is desperate to reindustrialize, given our low economic growth rate, given our low employment rate, this is an industry that we really have to make sure that we are supporting. This is an industry we have to make sustainable. This is an industry that has to be part of the industrialization agenda. And so we raised not only the issue of the current crisis, but also broadly some of the challenges that exist within the sector.
I mean, the film industry really does describe the situation as maladministration. You also mention a committee that has not sat in a while. What steps are being taken in order to address some of these governance and accountability issues within the Department of Trade and Industry?
So, I mean, what the minister has committed to is that they will be sourcing funds in order to clear the backlog. So that is the first commitment that we had, which actually really is a victory from that Tuesday sitting. But our job now as parliamentarians is to oversee that, it's to follow up on that, it's to watch very closely the timelines and making sure that that is delivered on in meeting this particular issue that exists. We've also had a commitment to actually resource the film unit better, because not only has there been an issue of the committee not sitting, there also are just not enough people to sit and go through what is thousands of applications that come in through that unit. So the unit does have to be better resourced, not only in number, but also with people who understand the industry, with people who understand actually just the industrialization potential of the industry as well. So those are some of the things that have been committed to. One of the issues that was proposed by the Deputy Minister on the day was to move the incentive to arts and culture. And that's something that we pushed back on quite strongly. The Deputy Minister proposed moving the incentive to arts and culture. And my position particularly is that relocating the scheme actually risks reframing this as a cultural grant rather than actually what it is, which is an industrial financing and export promotion initiative or intervention. The film value chain, like I said, it includes a number of non-arts industrial segments. And so we pushed back against it. I know the industry also pushed back against it to say that rather there should be interdepartmental cooperation. For example, getting the Department of Small Business Development more involved, working with the Department of Labor and working with arts and culture together. But to simply move the incentive to arts and culture is what actually even one of the MPs framed as being lazy. That is not the answer. Should sit within trade and industry, and we have to find ways to make sure that we are indeed industrializing with this industry.
So, I mean, you've already mentioned a few solutions with regards to this, and that being resourcing the unit that is going through these applications and having that interdepartmental cooperation. How do you think government agencies should better coordinate to prevent such future disruptions in funding and support, especially for creative industries?
I think it's important to understand the industry. It's important to understand what sits within the ecosystem and the value chain of the industry. I think government agencies need to have people within these agencies that are actually from the industries, whichever industry we're talking about at the time, and understand how the industry works. That's a first. I also think that I know that there is a master plan for the industry, and I think that there needs to be better attention paid to those kinds of strategic plans for the industry, and there has to be better implementation of those master plans and of the interventions that sit within those master plans. It's absolutely important. But also then more critical, you have to have political will. And that is very, very important. You have to have the political will to say that we actually care about this industry. We care about transformation even in the industry, which is one of the other issues that one raised on Tuesday. We care about the trajectory of the industry, and we recognize the multiplier potential of this industry. We recognize the ability of this industry to be able to create jobs, but more than anything, to also actually be able to take South Africa to the world, not only from a branding perspective, but also from an investment perspective.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, withholding some of these funds could also limit the country's ability to attract international productions, as well as promoting South Africa as a filming destination.
Absolutely. And so that is what has happened. There's been withdrawal of various previous investments or investments that had committed to work within this industry, to partner with and to co-produce with some of the local firms. We've seen that already happening, withdrawals. And so we have to see commitment from the DTIC, commitment from even arts and culture to be able to then again attract those investment and get that investment back into the country. We also have to make sure, which is something that I raised, that the way that these investment schemes are actually designed, they don't ultimately only benefit foreign companies or benefit foreign or multinational or bigger corporations more than they do local companies and more than they do local companies across sectors within the value chain of the film industry. That's also really, really important. So while we speak about making sure that we don't lose that investment, we don't lose those partnerships from those foreign, from those international film companies, we also have to make sure that we're also protecting and rather empowering local companies to be able to partner and work with international companies as equals and as partners in those instances.
So, Nobuntu, what would you say are your hopes for the recovery and the future growth of South Africa's film industry?
You know, this is an industry that, like I said, is not simply part of arts and culture. It is an industry that really, really has the potential to stabilize and to contribute to a number of industries. It has, in fact, in some ways, advantaged large global and established service companies. And when I say it, I'm speaking about the incentive schemes with strong balance sheets and pre-financed productions more than it has local. So my hope is that small Black-owned producers would start to be structurally included, would be able to grow into international corporations and international companies themselves as well. Transformation at producer level doesn't always equal industrial ownership transformation.
Sure.
And so we have to see that the industry becomes more than being about participation, but it also becomes about industrial ownership. That really is my hope for the industry. I'd love an industry where even the platforms, the broadcast platforms that we have, actually have transformed and are owned by companies that started off maybe as producers and just filmmakers, to actually be owning and to be actually be commercially industrialized and running those bigger firms that actually own within the industry. I'd love to see what happens with IP and IP becoming something that players in the industry, creatives, can actually keep and can sustainably live on for long periods of time. That's really is the dream for this industry.
Surely, and for those production companies to contribute immensely towards promoting economic growth. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and just giving us that perspective. That's the Portfolio Committee member on Trade, Industry and Competition, Nobuntu Hlazo-Webster.